Mark here, another Mark 2.0. Got a great guest for you today. You know him from My Favorite Waste of Time, the big 80s hit, Owen Paul. Welcome to the podcast, Owen.
Nice to be here, Mark. How are you?
Great. Now, I want you to explain how the music scene has changed since you first started and explain how you got into music to begin with.
Okay, I'll do how I got into music in the first place. I'll tell you that first.
Sure.
It was very, very simple. When I was at school in the 70s, it looked like I was going to be a soccer star. And I signed for a massive team in Scotland called Glasgow Celtic, which if you Google, the world knows Glasgow Celtic. And it was my dad's team because my dad was Irish. And it was like, this looked like my career for sure. And then suddenly in 1976, I think it was, punk music exploded everywhere in the UK, off the back of New York, where it started with Blondie and the other bands, Ramones and such like. And at that time, it was such a strange thing. I heard Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols, and I just thought, what an incredible noise that is. And it did something to me. It was, I'd been a Bowie fan for many years prior to that, and I thought he was an amazing artist. I still do. But the Sex Pistols and the Clash and the other bands of a similar nature, they had this uncontrollable thing that really appealed to me. And obviously, because I couldn't play an instrument, another thing about punk music at that time was you didn't have to play an instrument. You just made a good noise, make the best noise you can. Just keep hitting it until it makes a good noise, then go that way. And then the strangest thing happened. So instead of going to youth clubs and sports clubs like I had been all my life up to that point, everybody around me at school were forming bands overnight, so the Sex Pistols happened, and then people were forming bands. Everybody in my class was in a band. Everybody in other classes, in other years at my school were forming bands. And my elder brother and his friends formed a band. My brother called Brian McGee. Google him. Okay. And so he formed a band, and they used to rehearse in our house, right? So we had a basement area that they used to rehearse in. And I used to sit at the top of the stairs listening to them rehearse. And I would hear them. They would play 7-inch singles, vinyl, to get like inspiration before they started the rehearsals. And they made a real punky racket, and it was very noisy and very whatever. But I was very impressed that they were having a go, and they were only teenagers, So sure enough, from friends of my brother's band he'd formed from school, all the guys that I knew, other people were going, why don't you be in a band, on? Why don't you join in? You look good. I was going, I can't play anything, but that doesn't matter. Just learn how to hold a guitar like Mick Jones from The Clash or Keith Richards. So I just learned how to hold a guitar. So luckily we had a guitar in the house. So I used to just walk around. I used to just walk around holding the guitar, right? So before I knew it, I'm in a band. Then I'm watching the other guys who actually can play a bit, and I'm watching their left hand in particular, going, "Oh, hang on a minute, what's that shape they're playing with their fingers? Oh, hang on, that sounds quite good." So I'd try that when I was in private. Then I'd go, I have no idea whether it's a D, an A, or a G, or a C, or whatever. And from there, I joined the band, and then I started to write a few songs. And then we went on tour around Scotland, where I'm from. And I used to be late for school because I'd leave school at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They'd pick me up in the van. I was still 15 at this point, right? So the older guy in the band who could drive a van, picked me up in the van from school. I still had my uniform on, got to Aberdeen, which is up north in Scotland, which is like 200 miles away or more. Do the gig, travel back through the night, go straight to school the next morning with my uniform back on. My parents had no idea what I was.
Wow.
But I learnt my trade, so bit by bit, because especially in the era of punk, people loved live music regardless of what you were singing. They just wanted to hear new stuff. It's not like now where if you play in a bar, you've got to play Ed Sheeran, or you've got to play Coldplay, or otherwise they're leaving. You go, this is my new song. You go, boring. Don't want a new song.
I know what you mean.
Sing me some Adele. Whereas back then that wasn't the case. You could go there completely unknown. The place would be jam packed. People just coming out to hear brand new things. The whole atmosphere was amazingly different to it is now, and that's how much the industry's changed. Although the internet has changed the music industry, I'll get onto that in a minute. Anyway, turns out I got the hang of it. I wasn't even the singer in the band at that point, right? I was just a fake guitarist who didn't plug his amplifier in. I was miming pretty much, just looking good, right? And then over time, there was a rehearsal we had booked, and our lead singer had to go to a dental appointment to get new teeth or something crazy.
Oh, wow.
Right? Anyway, his error was he couldn't make it until an hour later. So we're standing there going, dum dee dum dee dum, what are we going to do? Dum dee dum dee dum. What shall we do? And I said, you know what? I'll sing the songs until he gets here. So I sung a few songs, and then the boss of the band said to me, can we stop now? I was like, okay. He said, oh, and I think you need to go home. I was like, why? He went, just go home. We'll talk tomorrow. Just go home. Anyway, sure enough, the former lead singer arrives at the rehearsal. I'm gone, and they fire him, and I'm now the lead singer from the next day.
Jeez.
So suddenly, every gig thereafter, I'm singing all the songs. I'm now the front man. Now I've got to deal with that, how to deal with a crowd and an audience and managing the thing. I still couldn't play a note on the guitar, but I could certainly sing the thing. And then over time, we went down to London because obviously everyone thinks that's where the streets are paved with gold. And you try and get a record deal, that never happened. In the meantime, to jump back a little bit, my brother's band, who were rehearsing in my basement, were the Simple Minds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
How about that, right? So in the meantime, they get a record deal, and they sign to Arista Records, I think, and they end up on TV in the UK. And then it was one of those things, a bit like even like in sports stars do this. If somebody becomes world #1 or gets on television, everyone around them from their community thinks, hang on a minute, if they can, I can. It's one of
I
those.
see.
Do you know what I mean? Like if Boris Becker, right?
Yeah.
Boris Becker wins Wimbledon or the US Open, the next day, thousands and millions of Germans are buying tennis rackets. Right? So when I saw my brother on this massive TV show on the BBC, the same as me, same as everyone around me, we were like, oh, hang on a minute. It's not beyond me that. I could have a go at that. So, that was the sort of attitude changer. And it opened up the doors to everything. And then we all thought anything is possible here. And given that I come from punk, even though my music is not like punk, the attitude is still the same. I believe that anything's possible. There are no rules. You make it up as you go along. If you end up working in an orchestra, you say you have to be a B flat. I say, no, I don't. I said, I'll do something that's nice. If it's not nice, it's not in. It can be a D over B flat if you want to get musical. But I don't believe that it has to be B flat. And I'm still like that. And even the records that I make now, which are very countrified, kind of country folk music, because I'm very much an old Scottish Celt folk guy. And I've sort of, after being a pop star in the 80s, once I finally did get a record deal, and we did My Favorite Waste of Time and more, and it became massive worldwide. My real heart was in folk and country music, because my dad used to play country music all the time. And also when you're a Celt or you're Scottish or Irish or Welsh, singing in front of your family is normal. Every New Year, especially New Year's Eve, everyone would say to you, okay, Owen, it's your turn. Then after you, it's Brian's turn. And everyone had to do a turn and sing a thing. So I was very, very used to singing in public when I was very, very young. And it was always kind of country folk songs, and that type of thing that we knew, like classic Irish Celtic songs, which are worldwide. And that's where I'm at now. And I'm now releasing records like that, which are doing very well for me. But that's how I got into the music business. And then, as I say, I went down to London. A guy from the BBC spotted me in the band that I was in. Didn't like the band, but he liked me. He thought I had a thing. And he was like, he didn't tell me to leave the band or anything. He never mentioned it. And then some months later, probably years later, maybe 2 years, after doing all the gigs, the punky gigs and the rock club gigs in London and surrounding areas, I left the band because I wasn't happy with the way they were doing the songs that I was writing. Because unusually I don't sit down with a guitar or a piano or whatever and play until I go, oh, I like that bit, let's make a song like that. I hear the whole song in my head, and my job is to try and figure out how to play what I heard in my head. So I'd say to the guys, here's a new track called whatever, heard it in my head. I don't even know what key it's in or anything. I could barely tell you what the chords are, but this is how it goes. And then I get them to play it. And as time went on, I got more and more frustrated with that. So I decided to go solo. And then because the sort of into the early 80s, when electronic music came around, you could buy drum machines and you could buy, you know, keyboards that could do bass guitar and whatever. So I started to record everything on my own. So it was easier for me to translate what I was hearing in my head because I could do it direct without having to explain it to someone else, you know. And then all of a sudden I got a record deal very, very quickly because the songs are more like I had imagined them and stuff. And then, you know, before I knew it, I got my first record deal with CBS Sony worldwide. I'd done a few singles before Favorite Waste of Time, but then that became a gigantic record. And then because when I was young, many moons ago, when I was 24, 23, 24, I was quite a pretty boy. So they kind of, you know, they sold me as a kind of the new David Cassidy.
Nice.
Or the new Donny Osmond. The fact that I was actually a punk rocker at heart, more like Bruce Springsteen or something, or Bono, you know, they didn't care about that. They just thought we can sell this guy's face, you know. So every album sleeve or single sleeve was always a picture of me looking like baby faced, you know. And it used to drive me mad because everyone would then, I was then, you know, appealing to teenage girls predominantly. And then when I got to start doing live shows, and before then I was used to playing 200 people in a club. But before I know it, I'm playing 3,000 seaters and 5,000 seaters and whatever. But it's all teenage girls screaming, wanting to see me naked. When I'm trying to tell them a story about my song and convey my emotion and my thought, and you know, here's my opinion on this. What's yours? You know, and I was trying to do that, so it became a bit of a, you know, square peg in a round hole classic scenario, which happens quite a lot. And I became increasingly frustrated with that, and then drifted out into the sort of behind the scene work. So I became a record producer. I liked that more because I didn't have to be famous and do all the stupid stuff and go on Crazy Kids TV and throw cakes at each other and all that. I didn't want to do all that. I wanted to talk about things that I felt mattered. And I could do that from behind the scenes. I could help people work on their records, or I could just produce or arrange or whatever. And then I worked in music. I owned a theatre for a while. So I worked behind the scenes in that. And Boy George, by this point, I knew Boy George for some time in the sort of mid to late 80s. And he walked into our venue and said, I'd love to put on a musical here. Are you up for that? I was like, hey, yes, please.
Exactly.
And it was the musical Taboo, right? So they said to us, I'm digressing here, but go with me. So Boy George says to me, we'll do a deal on the rent. And I says, well, hang on a minute. This is musical theatre. I said, you know, I can't book you in here for 6 weeks and you last one night and then I'm empty for 5 weeks or more. I said, that happens. Musicals sometimes last a week or whatever. Anyway, fault line is, I needn't have worried. It was sold out every night for 4.5 years and then went on to Broadway and won there as well. So I needn't worry. So I got used to working behind the scenes. I didn't have to do television and interviews and, you know, as I say, all the slapstick things that come with being a pop star, you know.
Oh yeah.
But over time, you kind of get over yourself a little bit. You know, the more mature you get, and I mean many years. I didn't make a record on my own for something like 20 years, or do a concert. And then I got asked to do something on TV in the UK, and I said, well, you know what? Yeah, I will do it. So I did it. And then it was as if like bookers and agents suddenly went, oh, hang on a minute, Owen Paul's not dead. so, so before I know it, my phone has gone red hot and I'm getting booked for this festival. Let's go to Germany. Let's go to whatever. Take the 80s show. Sing your thing. Sing your big hits. Do your stuff. But before I know it, I'm back doing it 20 odd years later. And I sort of, as I say, I'd matured over it. I wasn't denying I was Owen Paul anymore. I was admitting it.
Yeah.
And I was loving it because, you know, you go from, you know, if you imagine like 20 odd years have passed, and even now, Favorite Waste of Time is on its 35th anniversary, right? And you go to these festivals in Europe, especially, and you sing the opening bit, you're man, whatever, then 25,000 people sing it back to you at once, then they sing every word, every word. There's
Yeah.
nothing like, you suddenly realize what it meant to them. Never
I
mind what
see.
it meant.
Yeah.
Never mind what it meant to me. Never mind what I thought. Never mind what happened to me. So
Yeah.
you suddenly realize the first time that happens, you go, oh my God, this is part of their life. And it
Mm.
meant something. And because it's very summery song and very sunshiny, they've all got fond memories that might be a little bit, on the positive side, but might not be true. But at least they got some release from it. And at these 80s festivals in particular that are going on now, they go on every year, they're massively successful. And I'm sure it's the same in America. Um, they These guys come away for the weekend, they leave their children getting watched by their grandparents or whoever, and they get to forget about their mortgages and their jobs, and they come away and they sing. I do the shows I do with Tony Hadley, or Spandau Ballet, or Nick Kershaw, or Wang Chung, or millions of them, Howard Jones,
Mm.
Tears for Fears even. So they come away for a weekend, they dress up back in their 80s clothes,
Oh yeah.
and they go absolutely crazy for it. It's such a brilliant thing to be involved with. But the interesting part to me is when I suddenly realized that, I was being a bit, snooty or snobby about it. And in fact, I forgot how much it meant to other people. And I had to have some regard for that. So I absolutely love it now. I love it. It's the best time of my life.
And you're still you're doing music that you enjoy also. Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely. And that, for me, that became the problem in the early part into the late 80s, right? So imagine being me, right? So imagine, Mark, you made a record, right? You just imagine, do you make records?
I don't, unfortunately, but
Okay, okay. Well, imagine you did, right? And
sure.
your band is called Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
okay? So you've played the college circuit, you've built up a following, you've got a track record, your albums have come out, they've done really well. And then on a whim, like I did, you make a pop record on a whim,
Yeah.
okay? And it sells millions, right? Then the boss of either Warner Brothers, if that's your label, or Sony, then say to you, can we have 15 more of them, please? Forget that other stuff. You
I
imagine
see.
saying that? Can you imagine saying that to Led Zeppelin or The
No,
Who?
I know what you
Right,
mean. Yeah.
right. We'll see in the 80s, that's exactly what they did. They did it to George Michael because I was good friends with him. They said to him, we don't like that second album. We want Faith, part two. We don't like,
Oh yeah. Okay.
you see what I'm saying?
I
So
see exactly what you're saying.
he wrote, his second album as a solo artist was Listen Without Prejudice,
Mhm.
which I think is a far superior record, but
Oh, it's awesome.
it wasn't deemed to be as commercial as Faith, with Faith on it and Father Figure and other tracks. So they wanted that. And you think if you're a guy like George Michael, never mind little small pop star me, George Michael, the biggest star in the world, you think, well, he can tell his record company, well, we're doing it anyway. I'm in charge here. No, they release the record because they're contractually obliged on whatever date in your contract, but they don't promote it. They don't sell it like
Ah,
they
exactly.
want they want rid of it. They don't send it out to radio. They don't do the stuff that they normally do. You don't get the big stores advertising. You don't get any of that because they want rid of that record. Then they go, see, Owen, it didn't sell. You got to do what we say. And then you end up in court like George did. I did the same. I then got a music ban on me because I refused to. Every time they said to me, have you got new tracks? I'd say I've got writer's block.
That's
Anyway, Mark,
genius.
it is genius. I'll tell you why it really worked in my favor, right?
Mhm.
So is that they said, okay, so is there anywhere you want to go and see if you can get inspiration? They sent me all around the world on their bill.
That's
so I've
smart.
got, so I was like, okay, let's try St. Lucia, see if I can get inspiration. I'd come back and go, nah, I didn't get anything. Okay, let's try the Caribbean. Let's go somewhere else in the Caribbean. Let's go to Nassau on the Bahamas. Let's try that. So they sent me all around the world for 6 months. And I came back. I had no intention of giving them any of the songs that I'd written. No intention. So then I said to them, look, I haven't got anything. They said, well, you can't. We're not going to let you record with anyone else. You can't really. I went, well, I'm not going to. I haven't got anything to record with you guys. What are you going to do? So they put an injunction on me, meaning that I couldn't use the name Owen Paul. So I ended up becoming a record producer and an arranger, as I said, and worked behind the scenes, and they couldn't touch me, so it's fine until that time was up. And then, by that time was up, in the industry, you're very hot for a while, and then suddenly you're very, very cold. Over the intervening years, it's like Owen Paul, who, you know, and I couldn't get myself arrested, so I just went, "Oh, forget that. I'm making good money working in other places, so just leave it." But it's not like I stopped writing songs, I stopped recording songs. I did throughout the whole time because that's part of who I am. I just didn't care if anyone else heard them. I wasn't looking for any kind of gratification from getting a gold disc or a chart position or anything. I didn't care
Hmm.
about that. I just wanted to get the song out because it was something that I thought about, an opinion that I wanted to, think. And then obviously in later years, I decided to start making records again. I just couldn't help myself. And obviously because of the internet uh, and social media, especially social media is like, it has its pros and cons, obviously. But something like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, I can get to an audience without a record company. But back
Yeah.
in the eighties, I had no chance of getting near anyone. Because we had nothing like the internet, and yet all we had to do was put out adverts and send in letters to people. Whereas now I can email a million radio stations. Well, I don't do it. Somebody does it for me, which is brilliant. I can email a million radio stations in a week, and then I find out Japan wants to do an interview, Australia wants to do an interview, blah blah blah, and then they play the records, and then I find out they played more records. Then you, all of a sudden, because of iTunes, I can get on iTunes without a record label. I can do
Yeah.
iTunes, iTunes, Amazon, YouTube, you name it. I can do that in 24 hours. So that's another interesting thing. You'd have to be, when I remember back in the days when I was signed to Sony, I would say to the guys, we've done this record. I'd love a new record by, say, let's say May 1987, right? They say, oh, record company say, well, it's going to take at least 8 weeks to get it all set, the artwork and the stuff and whatever. He said, on top of that, Michael Jackson's got a new record and he's on Sony, and Bruce Springsteen's got a record, so we better wait till after that. And then maybe Paul Young's got a record, we may have to wait after that. I go, well, hang on a minute, that sounds like next year you're talking about. That's this is no good to me, Anyway, now, right, I could finish this conversation with you, do a quick mix of a song that I'm currently working on, and I could have it online by tonight.
Ah, exactly.
It's incredible, and then even the because of the way recording techniques have changed, is that I can change the mix. Basically, when you make a record, you have to, in the olden days, the 80s and before, you do your recording. It's costing you something like £1,000. I don't know what that is in dollars. It's probably like $1,500 a day for a recording studio. So you have to commit to what you've got, and then you walk away after so many days and your budget is gone. Now I can sit with a Apple Mac or whatever, and with all the tracks separated into different things. It's all digital and brilliant. I can send tracks over to musicians that I want in New York or Canada, wherever, or Japan, as I said before. Then they can send the track back. I can stick in it. I can go, let's get a guitarist from that brilliant guy in Holland. He plays on the track, and I can then mix that all and then change it right up until the last second, every tiny little bit. So that's a revelation. The problem you've got, the sort of catch-22 with that, and it really is a catch-22. And when I work with younger artists, I say, you've got to be real careful here, because the fact that you can do this over and over and over and over again, right until the last second, means that you might never finish anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
That is a real problem. I say sometimes having a time limit is good because you move on. I say you've got to get a point, and somebody's got to be in charge. If I'm the record producer, I'm going to give you a time. This has got to stop. You've went as far as you can. If you want to beat that, beat it on the next track. If you want to beat that, beat it on the track after that. Otherwise, you could sit and mix and tweak and move things around, move the hi-hat to here, the bass drum to there, the bass guitar a little bit louder, but you could sit there for the rest of your life and release one song after all that time,
Yeah.
which is pointless, because if you've got something to say, if you've got an opinion on a thing, which is obviously lyrics are very important to me, part of the fundamental about what a song's about, and the song creates the atmosphere and the mood to best convey that thing, then you've got to share that thought. Because the whole idea about life for me is, it doesn't matter, be it a song or an opinion on something, or how is my food. I'll give you an example, right? which is a stupid example, but I think it works as a sort of, a diagram of how I see it, right? If my mom makes me, let's say, hot dog and fries, right, homemade, and she gives it to me every day, and because I love her, it doesn't matter how badly she made it, I say that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. If I don't give her my actual real opinion, nothing changes, right?
True. Yeah.
I don't improve her. I haven't improved me. I'm not eating better food, right? So it's my duty somehow, however gentle, to go, Mom, that was really nice, but I think you need to cook it a little bit longer. That's my opinion. Doesn't make me right or wrong, but that's how I think that's my input. So if you ask me now, Mark, about any subject in the world, whether I know what I'm talking about or not, I will give you input. The sharing ideas and thoughts and opinions, for me, makes progress and makes for a better world. That's what I'm obsessed with.
Yeah. Now, what about your album? The one that I really like is About Time Too.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, as I said, over a certain amount of time, sort of into the late 90s and the beginning of the noughties, as we call it, I had collected a lot of songs, as I said before, that I hadn't actually made records and released. But I still felt they were, they were valid, and they still were who I am and what I thought, and they were much more who I am and what I thought than what I did in my earlier work when I was a pop star, when it was just like watered down rubbish, because the record company demanded it. And they'd always demand that every song was 3 minutes, and you better get to the chorus in 1 minute because the radio stations won't play it. They were giving you all that rubbish. And because they fund it, they think they can do that. Imagine telling Queen, sorry, Bohemian Rhapsody's too long, guys. Which
Yeah.
in fact, EMI did tell them that's
Wow.
too long. That's not a single. I mean, these guys shouldn't be in charge. You know what I
No.
mean? You sign Queen, you're not expecting them to do a Donny Osmond thing. You're not.
No.
Right? There's something else. Let them be that. Let Donny Osmond be the pop guy. Let David Cassidy be the pop guy. Let Queen be Queen. They're a rock extravaganza. And take, But so on About Time, I had the freedom because it was self-funded, and I didn't have to worry about who the paymaster was and who was telling me how it should go. And some of the songs, like the opening track, "It Could Happen," it's like something like 6.5 minutes long, because I wanted to create an instrumental ambience that created the mood that I thought was coming in the rest of the album, but it would lead you into song one, nice and gentle. I didn't want it to be ah, 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 ah. I wanted it to be something you could play in the background and creep up on me. So I was able to experiment in that way that I'd never done before, and then over time, because the album's called About Time Too. Over time, that don't trust me. There are songs on there that are the 3 minutes regulation version, because that's how the song worked. But when I felt a song could go on, there's a track on there called Soon, which is in 3 parts. My record company, Sony, would never have allowed that in our years.
No, no way.
It's one of the most favorite songs of the people that like me now. They love that track. They'd never have got to hear it if I was still signed to a record company. So in that regard, the music industry has been a massive help. And then because of YouTube, as I said, Facebook, Instagram, whatever the new one is, TikTok, I've got people from all over the world that don't even know who I am and don't know anything about me being a pop star in the 80s, who just like what I do now, which is a great thing. I'm getting stuff, especially the more country folk things. I'm getting people from national radio stations coming asking me, will I do a live session on Zoom and play with my musicians and all that? Because they think that's what I've always done, and they like it that way. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's great, because no offense, your newer stuff is a lot better than, favorite ways to, if it's more your style,
Yes. It suits me. It's who I am.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Obviously, when you get to, in your early 20s, or I mean, even later, you're not really sure what you are, who you are, and whatever. Then as time goes on, I'd already been a pop star, so I didn't need that.
Yeah.
And, I didn't really enjoy that much, to be honest. I enjoyed the success and the financial rewards that it gave, but I didn't. And obviously, it meant that I could make more records, which is what it's all about. If you don't make enough money to make more records, then you're stuffed. I loved all that, but artistically, it didn't really work for me, and I was always looking for an outlet so that I could be someone else. So I almost left it long enough so that the time, About Time 2 came out, I wasn't connected to that other guy, you know, and it was Take Me As I Am. Imagine like I'm a brand new act. I nearly actually on that record, I nearly called it a band name.
Hmm.
Take it away from me altogether. But then I was talked out of it because somebody said to me, "What if it's a roaring success? You should be your name on there. That's who you are." I was like, "Okay, I get it." So I gave in, but I still had done the transition between being the pop guy and doing that sort of wishy-washy, watery stuff, and to doing stuff that really meant something to me and had something to say, even if you disagree with what I was saying. I don't mind that. I think that's how the world goes round.
Yeah. What was it like? Because you worked, what was it, 2004 with Mike and the Mechanics?
Yes.
Was it on Rewired? Yeah.
I'll tell you what happened, right?
Sure.
So basically, I'm in a recording studio in 2002, I think, and the guy that I'm working with is a guy called Peter Van Hook, who was the original drummer with Mike and the Mechanics. So we'd been recording there for some weeks in his studio out in the country, and we said, "Listen, we're going to have a quick lunch break. So we've got a friend coming around, we'll have lunch, and then we'll start again later on." So anyway, I said to him, "Look, I'll carry on with the engineer, and we'll work on stuff and see you in an hour or so." Anyway, a head gets stuck in around the corner of the door, and it's Mike Rutherford, and he's very, very posh, very English, very old style English. But "Excuse me, dear boy. Excuse me, dear boy." I was like, "Yeah, yeah." He said, "Who made this record that we're hearing right now?" I went, "That's me." I went, "Oh, well, very nice, sir, very nice." And he said, "And who did the vocals and the vocal arrangements of all this?" I said, "Yeah, it was me too." He said, "Oh, interesting, interesting." Sorry, I had nothing. And he said, "Thanks for that." We went, shook hands, bye bye. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, Mike calls me. He says, "Owen, dear boy, it's Mike here." I was like, "Okay." It felt like talking to my school teacher. A school teacher. Like, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir."
Yeah.
And he says, "I've been speaking to Paul Carrick, and we're thinking of making a brand new Mechanics album called Rewired. We've got all the songs ready." He said, "Would you like it if you got involved with arranging the backing vocals, and you get as many singers as you like, and you record what you want, and then we choose what we want?" He said, "We like to make a record like that." He said, we put the basic song down, and we send it out to different drummers. They do their thing, and then we choose." He said, "You could do this stuff with the vocals." I was like, "Yes, please, Mike. Yes, please."
Yeah. How could you say no to that?
Well, exactly. It gets worse or better. It gets better, right? So I do exactly that. I think I did something like 15 different songs, and then they got to pick and choose what Paul and Mike thought were the best bits, and I'd got 3 or 4 singers involved. I then cut and edited them the way I wanted it, put it onto the track, sent the track back. The album came out. It's a great success, and they'd used quite a lot of it, but not all of it, which is up to them. They were probably right. Some of the bits didn't quite work. I remember one bit we recorded, right? I said to the guys, this gives you an example of what my attitude's like, right? From my punk days and beyond. As I said to the backing vocalist, I said, "I don't want this to sound like singing, this bit." I said, I want it to sound like a siren. And they're like, "What?" He said, "I want it to be like a siren, but in harmony." So we just go, "Whoa, whoa." It's on the album, by the way.
Wow.
If you play Rewired again, find that where I go, "Whoa," and there's like 6 of us doing that at once. Anyway, they used it and the rest. But anyway, the best bit came after all that. So the album's out, great success for Mike and the Mechanics. I mean, on top of all their other massive successes. And then another few months go by. Mike Rutherford's back on the phone. "Dear boy, Owen, I'm back. Would you like to go on a world tour with us?" And you organise the backing singers, and you sing yourself on stage. And we're going on tour with Phil Collins, and we're going to be the special guests in the middle of the show. I'm like, Mike, I'm packing my bags
Yeah.
as we speak.
Uh,
So before I know it, right, I've gone 20 years without really making a record. I haven't done any live shows and more than that. And before I know it, I'm playing 95,000 seater stadiums all around Europe and the rest. It was like mind blowing, mind blowing. And obviously, because Mike and the Mechanics are massively successful, it's not like you're in a van.
no,
It's
that's a
first
good
class.
point.
It's first class everything by this point because that's the way they want it. And we did. I think we did 12, 14 shows with Phil Collins, and he was brilliant to work with as well. He was very relaxed. He wasn't one of those, you know, superstars that was a bit up themselves, let's say, and was difficult to work with. He would always allocate good time for us to sound check. A lot of big artists don't allow that, and they'd give us the best hotel rooms that they could. They'd fit us into we'd eat with the band, with Phil Collins' band as well as the Mechanics. We then did other big festivals all around the world. It was a fantastic experience. But this point now, as you can imagine, if I went from no shows to 95,000 people, I've come off that tour going, you know what, Owen, you need to get back out there, mate, on your own, do your thing, because I'm very, very good at it. I know I am. And I always thought of all the things, be it recording or interviews and promo, the live work was always a thing that was special to me because it's like in the moment, the audience are in the mood they're in. You try and affect their mood. You try and take them somewhere. They then take you somewhere, and it's that kind of communicative thing that I love about concerts. And it's instant, and then it's gone. You can rehearse all you like, but I don't like playing programmed stuff because if the audience want to go longer, I'll go longer. If the audience
Sure.
want this, if the audience want this song finished, I'll finish. If you program the whole track, you've got to go as long as that goes. I'm not into that. I like bringing on real live players. We jam it as we go. Yes, we're going to play the song as they know it, but then we're going to drift into whatever the feeling is in the moment. And it could last 10 minutes for one song or 2 minutes, depending on the vibes between the audience and the artist. And I like that very much. And it was a brilliant thing off the back of Mike and Mechanics to get into that, to get back to being a performer myself in my own right.
So are you someone who really doesn't care about like charts? You just care about making music that you enjoy and that your listeners enjoy.
Yeah, I've never once considered either chart position, fame. I never actually until later thought about the financial rewards because, as I said earlier on, there's one fundamental in the financial reward. However you get it, even if it's not for records, you've got to be able to afford to make another record.
Mm.
That's all I'm looking for. So I just want to make a record. I want to communicate with an audience. I want to say my piece, let them say their piece back to me, and hopefully either sells enough or the live concerts sell enough that I can make another record. And I'm very happy to say that has been the case.
Yeah, that's so great to hear because so many other musicians aren't in the same, situation that you're in. You're able
Yeah,
to do what you enjoy.
yeah. I mean, but listen, it took a long time to get to that place.
Sure.
Like I said before, when I drifted out of the music industry, I had children by this point. I had a home to pay for, I had bills to pay, I had gas bills or petrol or electric or whatever you want to call it, and taxes and same as everyone else. So I've still got to make that all work, and I've got to get in enough financial reward for that. So I did, some of the work that I did behind the scenes, either by running a theatre or producing other records or becoming a vocal coach, which I did for a while, and a performance coach as well. Those things kept me ticking over, you know. But when you start to spend some time making a record, and obviously you've got to try and focus on that work, you've got to hope. And obviously with something like Spotify, I can get thousands upon thousands. I mean, I know a lot of artists get millions and millions and make nothing from it. There's that's of no use to anyone, you
I
know.
see. Yeah.
And I understand that for instantaneous gratification, you just want one click and play the track. But you know, that's like 0.06 cent of a dollar. And
Sure.
I don't mean 6 cents, by the way. I
No,
mean,
point
I
six.
mean
Yeah.
0.6 cent of a dollar. That's frightening.
No.
Extreme. So I think it was Peter Frampton. He he posted on Twitter his royalty check for Show Me the Way, right?
Yeah.
You know the song? I
Oh
want
yeah.
you,
Show
show me the
me the
way
way. Yeah.
every day. Right? He posted his royalty check last year or the year before from Spotify from something like 11.5 million streams. It was $7,000.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Now listen, if you're going to use musicians on your new record, that's not enough to get them to play more than 2 tracks.
No.
You know what I mean? Come on. Whereas though, and this is sort of where artists and management have caught on to this, know that they can't change it. It is what it is now. We're stuck with it because the record companies have done a deal and allowed Spotify to do such a deal. And we're stuck with it anyway, for the foreseeable anyway. Hopefully it'll change eventually. And you can make a reasonable amount and they should, split the cut better. That'd be nice. But in the meantime, what you got to do, and this you'll find this in any country in the world, an artist ticket for a concert has been creeping up and creeping up and creeping up, and merchandise sales have been creeping up and creeping up and creeping up because that's his payday.
Makes sense.
There is no payday in even on iTunes. It's very minimal, but Spotify is the worst. But if you could sell thousands upon thousands, unless you're in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands to millions on sales. If you're an Ed Sheeran or somebody like that, there's not a lot of money to be made here. But you can make it back because everyone's got to know your stuff and they're comfortable and they like what you do. And then before you know it, you can do a 1,000-seater because they all know the tracks without you having a record label. Because you can announce on Facebook, and people can Google you and go, oh, hang on a minute, Owen Paul sort of right. Oh, I quite like that. Oh, I quite like that song. And blah blah blah. Before you know it, I'm booked for a theatre show, and they come and they spend the money and they buy a T-shirt and they might buy hard copies even because that's those types of people are, and that's where your payday comes. That means you can then make another record. That's what you've got to figure out. If you just stick to trying to think I can make it in the music business, I'm some guy and I just put up my clips on YouTube, it's not going to work because even if they can download or stream or whatever, there is no money in that. You've got to create an audience somehow. Some people that will come to your show in whatever town you're in. It's like if guys like on my Twitter page, for example, I speak to Curtis Stigers, right? And he's on tour in the UK now. And he's on his way back to the US. He is absolutely adamant that obviously people know, and I wonder why we hold on, and everyone knows that. He said, but I'm actually selling out more shows in bigger places than I ever did, and most of them don't even know that song.
That's great.
Yeah. He's saying they know my new stuff, and that's what they want. I'm like, that is ideal, mate.
Yeah,
that is ideal. I said, and then you can tell them about the old song and then do the old song.
Oh yeah.
He said it's a brilliant thing. It's absolutely brilliant. So that's nice. That's the way you've got to think of it, though. That your return will come once you gathered a following and you've persevered and you've kept posting things and you keep tweeting a thing and here's the link to it. And I used to not do the Spotify link on my tweets and my posts, but I've got over myself. Now I go, yeah, here you go, play it on there. Know my song, right? Then you watch the streams. You watch the streams go up, and they go, forget the money. Just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Then when I say I'm playing a show in London, they've all heard it, and they go, yeah, we'll come.
Oh, that's great, genius.
You got to get to that point, but it takes some effort.
So where can people get your merch? Because you sell T-shirts and merchandise.
Yeah, it's the owenpaul.com.
Okay, excellent.
And on there you get links to all the music tracks if you want to get them on iTunes or Amazon or whatever server you use. And there's merchandise and all sorts on there too.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. You're such a great artist, so very talented and underrated. I mean, when like About Time too, you would think that they'd be all over the radio.
Nope.
I mean, it's great. You know what I mean? With your talent, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but basically what happens is, obviously, I'm not sure how it works in America. I mean, maybe you have oldie stations, but the oldie stations are playing oldie songs, right? Yeah. And in the UK, the biggest one is BBC, right? BBC Radio 2, which is the biggest station, which covers the biggest amount of people. They won't touch me or Nick Kershaw or whatever. we're like yesterday's news. It doesn't matter how good the record is, they ain't playing it. They're
Yeah.
just not playing it. So you've got to, again, that's a losing battle. You know, if I was doing like radio promotion, right? The
Yeah.
companies that charge you to do that will charge you something like £5,000 or $7,000, say, per month
Yeah.
to promote to radio. But I've realized over time that that is pointless exercise. They're not playing it. You're old. Right now, they're going to play Adele. They're going to play Ed Sheeran. They're going to play, I don't know, the latest Noel Gallagher, and all the youngy people. And that's where they think it's at. But you know, most of the people weirdly, most of the people listening to that station want to hear Paul Carrick. It's one of the weirdest things, you know. Their audience, you know, the age group of the audience of this big station that I'm talking about
Yeah.
is the wrong side of 35.
Mhm.
Yet they insist, because of people with money, that they play brand new Adele. In fact, not only is she getting played 14 times a day, she gets to do the TV show spin-off. She then gets to do the big, massive concert at Hyde Park in front
Oh,
of
yeah.
100,000 people. And she gets all these bookings, you know, like, you know, you name it, they get it. Artists like me from what they would call yesteryear, or, you know, like I said, Nick Kershaw, Howard Jones, Spandau Ballet, even Simple Minds to a degree, after all this time, they don't get that access. Because even if the record is off the scale awesome, they ain't playing it. So you move on, and you try and find it. You know, how did you hear that album?
I heard it off Amazon.
Right.
I bought it off of Amazon. Yeah.
Brilliant. So see, it's still got a chance.
Yeah.
Records last forever. You know, that's one of the other things that's changed over time. Obviously, you used to make vinyl, and you'd record on tape. The actual record was made on tape, and then some of those would disintegrate, and you don't have them anymore. The digital age means that, you know, I told that my younger brother's involved in the music industry as well, right? And I'll say to him, you know, just keep recording, just keep writing, keep putting it up there. This is because even when you're long gone, it says somebody somewhere who might just be making a brand new film or the new version of Stranger Things might hear you somewhere, sometime, and go, hang on a minute, can you put that in there? I said, can you imagine how much money your kids will make when you're gone?
Yeah.
And I stick to that principle. It doesn't matter how long it takes. A song is unlike before, a song is not for now, it's forever. It's forever, you know? And I'm very glad to hear you got it on Amazon and bought it yourself. Well done, man.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and
My pleasure.
I'll make sure
My
to
pleasure.
promote your music.
That would be lovely, Mark. Thank you.